Hey everybody, it's David Sirota. So there's a fascinating story unfolding in Georgia right now that deals with all sorts of disparate issues, from corporate tax subsidies to the debate over gun regulation to questions over how public officials should be able to use their power as public officials in dealing with corporations. So here's what's going on. In Georgia, Delta is the state's largest employer. Atlanta is a huge hub for Delta. Delta has been seeking a tax exemption from jet fuel taxes that exist for various other airlines in other states. The state's Republican governor has been pushing about a $40 million tax break for Delta when it comes to jet fuel. Delta, in recent days, has said that it is going to end its discount deals that it has with the National Rifle Association. Delta made that announcement after the Florida shooting, like a number of big companies that have said that they're going to end their special deals for the NRA and NRA members. Well, here's what happened. There's a number of Republicans running for governor in Delta who are big NRA supporters. And the lieutenant governor of Georgia is one of those people running for governor. And he took to Twitter to threaten to kill the tax legislation unless Delta reinstates its special discount deals for the NRA. Now, this brings up a whole host of issues. You can debate the question of whether specific companies deserve specific special tax breaks. That's a big debate that's been going on. It's a worthwhile debate. A lot of these subsidies are considered wasteful. A lot of these subsidies are preferenced over spending on things like major public priorities like healthcare and infrastructure. That is a worthwhile debate. But here you have the lieutenant governor of a state using his public office to demand that a private company preserve its private, effectively, relationship with a political group, or else, if it doesn't, the lieutenant governor is using his public office to say he will kill a specific public policy for that private company. So in other words, you have a public official using his public office to threaten consequences, governmental consequences, against a private company if it doesn't reinstate its special discounts for a gun group, in this case the NRA. Now, it's worth noting that the lieutenant governor has received campaign contributions from the NRA in the past. So this is a pretty extraordinary situation where you have a public official using his public office to threaten public policy consequences against a company if it doesn't preserve the kind of relationship he wants it to preserve with the National Rifle Association. That's a completely separate debate and discussion from questions about corporate welfare and corporate subsidies. And it really is relatively unprecedented. I mean, you have had in the past public officials say that special subsidies shouldn't go to companies if they don't treat their workers well, or if they don't provide health care, or if they don't provide all sorts of other basic common public goods in exchange for public subsidies. That's very different than this. The NRA is a private political group. It is a political lobbying group. It's a political advocacy group. You can agree with it, you can disagree with it, but it certainly is a political advocacy and activist and lobbying group. And you have a public official using his governmental position to demand that that specific political advocacy group, which has given him money, that he's using his public position to demand that that political group get a special discounts from an airline. And to try to make that happen, he is threatening a public policy consequence. That is, that's really incredible. It is really, if not completely unprecedented, then certainly relatively unprecedented. You don't hear about that very much. And it's a disturbing evolution. I mean, typically, the subsidies, corporate tax breaks and the like are portrayed as for the common good. Now, you can believe that, you don't have to believe that, but this is a public official using or trying to threaten a public policy consequence for a specific, relatively narrow political agenda, a political agenda that serves a group that has given him money, a group that has helped bankroll Republican candidates in Georgia. How is it going to play out? It's hard to know. It's extremely hard to know, and you may end up seeing Democrats defending a special tax break for Delta on the grounds that they want to defend their campaign for gun reform. So there's all sorts of these issues mixing together where you've had some Democrats in the past raise questions about corporate subsidies. Now the preservation of a special tax break for Delta may end up being a flashpoint in a debate over gun reform. It's hard to know what's going to happen here. But I think at the root of it all, this question of whether public officials should be threatening to kill legislation in order to bring a private corporation closer to their political donors, in this case closer to a gun rights group. I mean, that is the core of this issue, and that is the core of the political issue at play in Georgia. It's not really about subsidies. It's really about whether a public official should be able to use their position to threaten governmental consequences against a private corporation if it doesn't do what that public official wants in terms of helping his donor and the Republican Party's core, a group that supports the Republican Party's core activism. It's really an important story. Keep following it.